Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's very nice to be here again. And again, congratulations to Justin for the 6th such conference. I think it's a terrific achievement on the subject. I can get my computer going. Here we are. I've chosen the obvious title of Miracles for my opening speech, because if you do not believe in miracles, you shouldn't be in this industry. I, of course, mean the high technology industry, the venture capital industry in particular. The good news is that miracles happen all the time. In fact, the venture capital industry depends on it, because if you have a portfolio of, say, 20 to 25 companies, you don't know which of these companies will really perform for you, but on average, between 1 and 3 companies become miracles. So why do they happen? Well, mainly they happen because of people, because of the teams that come to us with clever new breakthrough ideas and disruptive technologies. They also don't happen evenly spread across the geography of the country, but they happen in clusters where the technologies are created. Of course, I will say a few things about the Cambridge cluster, which we know well, and the community that we managed to create. But let me start with this slide, because there also has been a big shift in the way clever new ideas make it out of the research departments, which used to be, say, in the old world, the AT&T Bell Labs. Then there was this interesting intermediate step, which for want of a better word, I call technology development. So the research results, the clever new stuff that goes on at universities or at central research labs, then can spend up to 10 years in this technology development stage before it becomes a real product that hits the marketplace. And of course, Marvell did a lot. They invented it in Bell Labs. They have a corporate research that then did the technology development, and finally they deployed it to the Bell operating companies. But this model, beautiful as it was, unfortunately broke down because Bell Labs sadly did not finish to produce enough new ideas that made it to the marketplace fast enough, so it wasn't an efficient enough process. And interestingly, there is a new paradigm, which is probably best characterized by a company like Cisco, where the innovation happens at the university, not at Cisco. Cisco has not a very big research laboratory at all, but a very good intervention outfit. And they just watch all the startups, mainly in Silicon Valley, but more and more so elsewhere in the world, come up with these clever new ideas that might be relevant for their market sector, and then buy them up and distribute their products. So, European miracles, with the exception of Google, of course, which is the arch miracle. If you do any of the statistics on American venture capital, or American returns, or the American stock market, you always have to do the statistics with Google and without Google, because Google completely distorts the statistics. I want to talk to you about a little-known German company called Willix, ARM, CSR, Skype, Alexa, and Plastic Logic, which you'll hear more about in the following speech. So Willix is a German biopharmaceuticals company that targets cancer. It's based in Munich. It's just gone public on a European stock exchange, the Frankfurt Stock Exchange, with a market cap north of 200 million. And actually was the 96th business plan winner of the Munich Network Business Plan competition. As you know, we're very grateful for the Förderung für neue Technologien changing its name to Munich Network. So now we have a very close relationship between them and the Cambridge Network. ARM, I don't think I need to tell you a lot about. It is one of our great success stories, valued at over $3 billion now. And it produced no less than 2 billion microprocessors last year. That's more than 10 times the number of processors that Intel produces. Now, if anybody had predicted in the year 1990, when we spun out ARM from Acorn, that ARM would become a $3 billion company selling 2 billion microprocessors, everybody would have said that we're insane. But this is exactly what happened. It was a miracle. These are just the number of people that ARM has a relationship with. Skype, another European company, founded just in 2002, 4 years ago, by Niklas Enström and Jonas Fries of Khazar fame. Those of you who have children in the teenage bracket will know what Khazar was. And sold to eBay for $2.6 billion. And here was IP on the internet company, and many of you might be using Skype for low-cost voice activity. Our latest poster child is CSR. It's the CCL team that was spun out in 1999 to do the first single-chip Bluetooth device. It also produced the first single-chip 8211 device called Unify. It's a fabless chip company which we, I think, know a lot about. In Cambridge, we've got quite a few of those. And in 2005, it had revenues over 500 million, profits over 100 million, and this will be even greater this year in the market cap of 2 billion. Again, if anybody had predicted in the year 1999 that Cambridge would produce the leading Bluetooth company in the world, people would have laughed. In fact, many of my American colleagues did when I told them that we'd invested in a Bluetooth company. They said, Bluetooth? You must be crazy. Have you ever heard of Wi-Fi? There is no room for Bluetooth. Wi-Fi, a US IP standard that's basically the internet over, or Ethernet over the air, will take 100% market share here. But of course they didn't. Bluetooth has outsold 802.11, the Wi-Fi standard, in terms of numbers of chips every year, and also in revenue. CSR is a $2 billion company, the largest Wi-Fi company that Silicon Valley produces Apple's, valued at about $600 million. Now, Cambridge, of course, is a rather fine place, with its university ranking number 3 in the world. We've got 72 Nobel laureates, which is a global number 1. There's no other university that has more Nobel laureates. And in fact, with more Nobel laureates than any country in the world, with the exception of the US and the UK, which is not surprising since Cambridge is in the UK. It is the number high-tech cluster with over 1,000 high-tech companies employing 40,000 people. We've got a fine physics laboratory here, where Maxwell discovered some useful equations, J.J. Thomson discovered the electron, Berners Rutherford discovered the proton in Manchester, but he did come back. Chadwick discovered the neutron there, so 3 out of the 3 elementary particles isn't bad, followed by Crick and Watson discovering the structure of DNA, and Chris Wilbur did the development of the Cavendish. And more recently, Richard Friend and Jeremy Boros discovering light-emitting polymers in Henning Seringhouse, now the Hatchet professor at the Cavendish, discovering CMOS, which is a very important breakthrough in plastic electronics, because people thought that CMOS could not be implemented in polymer electronics. The CMOS, as you probably know, is by far the most widely used technology in the silicon space. And the problem was that the electrons got trapped in the interface in the plastic transistor, and Henning worked out a way of changing the materials in such a way that electrons could move as freely as those do, thereby enabling CMOS. Plastic electronics, we hope, will be our next miracle in Cambridge. As I already said, it came out of a very fine stable, the Cavendish laboratory, with Professor Sir Richard Friend now being the youngest Cavendish professor since J.J. Thomson in the Seringhouse. Stuart Evans helped this company grow, plus a local limited cluster. And as you will see later on, we have really quite a mature technology quite different from the first transistor that was produced in the 20th century in Bell Labs that you can see on the left there, was a germanium transistor. And one of the first 20 transistors on the right. And as Mike said, when you go down to these nanostructures and think about it in terms of molecules, the world changes completely, and you need different manufacturing techniques, a different way of thinking about producing the transistor. And the particular breakthrough in plastic electronics is the realization that you don't need plasma etching, you don't need masks, you don't need a $4 billion fab that is a necessary prerequisite for silicon manufacture. But you can actually do it with inkjet printing using a solution-based process rather than a high-temperature process that was used in silicon. So here on the right, you see inkjet printed transistor. And this is the vision of what plastic electronics might enable. Here you see Tom Cruise. Here you see a next 21st century newspaper. You see a live update with this headline that shows Tom Cruise on the run. This guy obviously sees him, and Tom Cruise knows that he's speaking. This was a very visionary trip at that time. And later on today, you'll see the first step towards realizing this trip in the talk by plastic electronics, plastic logic. So this is the vision of an e-newspaper. And the other thing worth saying is that we now have a lead in plastic electronics. It is very rare that you come up with a new semiconductor that has properties that are quite different from silicon properties. The mobility of plastic semiconductors at the moment is around 1, which is the same as amorphous silicon. So you can do the same things that you can do with amorphous silicon, which is widely used in backplanes for flat panel displays. So you wouldn't go out and build a Pentium with plastic electronics, because Pentium, of course, is built on crystalline silicon. But the great advantage of plastic transistors is that they're flexible. You can build them into lasers or other garments. You can make them flexible. You can make them very robust. Just need to get past the next slide. Another example of a miracle that happened near Cambridge, which I'm very proud of, is, as you saw in the great Cambridge focus, in the Cambridge, after these wonderful, this wonderful era when the Cambridge professors discovered 3 of the 3 fundamental particles, we had Crick and Watson do the DNA, so we have a very strong knowledge of the DNA molecule in Cambridge. And 2 brilliant chemists, David Clement and Shankar Balasubramanian, came up with a new sequencing technology for DNA. Because, as you know, all the information in our body is contained in 3 billion base pairs of a molecule called desoxyribonucleic acid, DNA for short. It's this double helix. And traditionally, it was sequenced by the Sanger method. Fred Sanger being one of our local heroes as well. And it was a way of chopping up the DNA and then finding out what the base pair at the end was. This is the holy grail of DNA sequencing, because instead of chopping the DNA up, you build it up 1 base pair at a time, right, with fluorophores to tag them. So we have a wonderful example of where an outstanding technology managed to attract world-class leadership with John West. He was the CEO of the division of ABI, the leading sequencing company in the world, and that division had revenues of $1 billion and we went to see and said, we've got bad news and we've got good news for you. The bad news is we have a new machine here from Solexa that is 100 times better in every respect to the machine that you're selling at the moment that will blow you out of the water. But the good news is we want you to do it. And he looked at the technology, realized that it was SOAS, and actually became the CEO of Solexa. We are reducing the cost of sequencing the human genome from about $3 billion, which the first one cost when Tony Blair and Bill Clinton announced the first human genome in the year 2000, and it is now at about $10 million, so we've made good progress. But we're reducing it from $10 million to $100,000, which will enable the human cancer genome project to start. And there's a lot of excitement about that, leading to a personalized medicine, because we can also see a way of reducing that further to just a few $1,000s. And it's also a great success financially. The company has just announced that it is being bought by Illumina for $600 million. Corporate venture capital is very important in this environment, and we don't have enough of it in Europe yet, although there are some good American companies like Intel and Cisco and Siemens, German company, helping us. We don't have a lot in the UK, especially in ICT. It's a lot better in bio. That's sort of the one missing here. So when are innovations really successful? They're successful when defensible technical breakthrough hits a large market, and both of them we need to have, and we've seen some examples. And typically they come out of a cluster like Silicon Valley, of course, is the archetypal American cluster, but we can be quite proud to have the #1 high-tech cluster in Europe here in Asia. And you know that the most important thing is a cluster is a people network. But here I've got a few statistics to cheer you up that things aren't all that bad in Europe as some of our American cousins will have us believe. This is the number of venture-backed IPOs, mainly technology IPOs in the world. Most of them are either in the US and in Europe. But look at what happened over the last few years. Of course, the US was always way ahead. But just over the last few quarters, there are now considerably more European high-technology IPOs than in the States, which of course has partially to do with the favorite American pastime right now is to shoot themselves in the foot. And so NASDAQ has done with Sarbanes-Oxley, so this doesn't seem to be a prerogative just of their president. Here is the average deal size, and this is also rather good news. If you look at this statistically, the black, the purple is the US as the benchmark. But look here, the black bar is rising very, very nicely to now 70% of America. This has always been a big problem for Europe, but they can fund our companies now. If you now take sort of top European venture capital companies like this, we are actually well above the average growth for America and Europe. So there is a very nice layer of top VCs forming in Europe that do this just with the same, if not more capital as the Americans, and therefore giving our companies a chance to compete on a worldwide basis. And here, I think, is one of the most telling statistics that we've recently dug out. We had our industry day last Monday, our investors conference. And we worked out how many serial entrepreneurs we had in our first fund, Amadeus One, and the answer was 17%. And how many serial entrepreneurs we had in our second fund, which was 41%. And all the 8 companies that we had invested in so far, in Amadeus 3, were serial entrepreneurs that we backed. So if you look at the reason for the great success of Silicon Valley wasn't born or built in a day. It took them about 20 years to build out the momentum that made it the high technology engine of the world. Well, as it happens, 20 years have just about passed since the Cambridge phenomenon started in the early 80s. And we now have the undergrowth of entrepreneurial talent as well as the technology to make it on the world stage. And this, I think, is a very powerful history. So in conclusion, I'd like to tell you that miracles seem to be something that is extremely unlikely. As it happens, it is not that unlikely, and I'm pleased to say Cambridge in particular seems to produce them quite regularly. You do need to have disruptive breakthroughs in technology, and out there at the cities you see many of them. My own hobby horse right now is plastic electronics, which I feel is going to be the next big growth sector, and one where we can steal a march on Silicon Valley and maybe we make a Cambridge Plastic Valley. It needs a cluster of high technologies with venture capital, but at the end of the day, the most important thing we have to have is faith. Faith in Europe and faith in Cambridge. Thank you very much. Basically, all the technical problems of which there were many have been solved. So now it's really a question of being able to raise the money to build the first factory, and we hope to have an announcement on this soon. But one thing that I would like to say in this context, which is really quite a sobering experience, is when we went out to look for a manufacturing site all over the world, we had a wonderful program in KPMG who are just the most wonderful people when it comes to site selection. They're really very professional. They looked at 235 sites for us, and we ended up with 2 as the final sites that we're now choosing between. One is in Asia and one is in Europe. And they're both very keen to become the new center for plastic electronics. They have bought into the idea that plastic electronics one day might be the same size and as important as silicon electronics, which is hundreds of billions. So they're fighting for it today, so they give us very good support, both financially and in terms of the site where we can be and the nearness to all the infrastructure that we need to be. And they're close to each other. But then we encountered the following very worrying problem with Europe. And that is many of the pieces of equipment that we need for plastic logic are pieces of equipment that are used in the LCD industry. And Europe doesn't have an LCD industry. So when we asked the mainly Asian manufacturers to sell us their equipment, they said, we don't have a CE mark on our equipment. So we said, well, how much would it cost to do CE mark? And they said, well, maybe $250,000. So we have to probably pay $250,000 more to get the equipment, which would have been all right. But then they said, we don't do Europe. Well, nobody's ever asked us to ship equipment into Europe. We'd have to set up an infrastructure. We'd have to set up a service organization. We only want to deliver to Asian companies because they're just next door and we put all the infrastructure in place. So I think there's a very worrying development because giving up Nike shoe manufacture to China is one thing. Giving up high technology manufacture where our real margins and our future lies because we have hollowed out
our industry to such an extent that the equipment manufacturers won't sell us the equipment anymore into Europe, I think is one of the most worrying things I've come across recently. Now we're trying to address this, and the final decision hasn't been made yet, but it is something that I did want to mention to you. Sorry, we did the lengthy answer. Any other quick questions?
Final question. Well, I can't just make a final question then. Look, why not Cambridge?
Well, very good question. That's indeed how it started off. Because if you just look at the potential from a UK PhD point of view, what would the most rational thing be if money was no object and planning permission was no object? And the answer is, of course, Cambridge. It's a factory right next to where the pilot lab is right now. And because wages are actually a very minor aspect of the final cost of the flexible display. The fact that our wages are 20 times the Chinese wages clearly did enter the equation in a major way. So this was not the problem. But the problem was that our, and this is not just true for the UK, this is true for Europe, the way we set up the support infrastructure for new factories, of course, is very regional. So Wales was actually one of the regions that made it into the last 5 or so. It was good responsive to that. I think we were in the factory by the end of 2007, and the other two sites said, well, we'll have a factory up for you in half a year. I said, okay, I'll have a factory up in half a year. When have you done this last time? And they said, look at that one over there, that's the central distribution network for FedEx. We built that in 4 months. I'll get that in research. So sadly, a combination of planning commission, subsidies, we're just not thinking strategically. If somebody said, what's the right thing to do for the UK, we're willing to take a bet. And of course, that's where you put it, but we didn't leave it there.
Well, a super story of great success